So I just spent the last 15 minutes arguing with my brother, who my brother like fantasizes about this like rural lifestyle living in the countryside, and he just wants to like buy this property and subdivide it and like build these little like eco homes on it. And I'm like, I love eco homes. Sounds great, but like PEI doesn't need more houses on it. It needs less. Has barely any natural resources anymore. And it's sinking, but you go for it.
Oh, you're going against the grain there, Matthew. Shame on you.
I know.
I would imagine you've gone against the grain on a number of different levels throughout your life, I would imagine.
See, I'm with him, and I fantasize that lifestyle, but I have these conversations with my boyfriend about like once we hit like a post-scarcity society, we'll probably all be living in like these cities, and like people could live outside of the cities, but it just would be much harder and just wouldn't make as much sense anymore to do that. And then the environment will flourish outside of the cities. And then the cities will also be nice too, but we'll have a lot less footprint on this planet if we did it that way.
Absolutely. Melanie, are you there yet? Yeah,
yes.
Oh, hey, Melanie. Just a quick comment to that, Matthew. I mean, it's a great point. I was having a conversation with some former students of NASCAD about a similar sort of topic, and I just don't, I would hope that's the case, but I just don't, right now, I can't see how real estate in general could ever become less, how can I say this, less speculative and less important in the scheme of middle class aspirations. For so many decades, home ownership and selling and buying homes has been the basis for the middle class to basically earn wealth quickly and to use that wealth to do things, send kids to college, retirement, and so forth. And I wonder whether or not we would ever be able to get to a point where housing isn't seen as the basis for middle class advancement. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's a really critical issue we've got to deal with as a planet, especially as being North Americans with all this space, and that, again, owning a single dwelling home has been so much part of the identity of North America, and even in Japan and even parts of Europe, owning a home is very much built into a particular psyche. And that's recent post-war.
That identity changed, like that identity even came forth like maybe as early as the 50s. Like,
right.
So it hasn't been that long since we started that. So exactly. Especially if you look at like Generation Z, which I guess I'm part of, I'm on the cusp, not a millennial. I guess looking at like Generation Z, like things are excruciatingly more important to them than current people who are like even in their 30s at the youngest, who are, they just want to buy houses and sell them, versus we're like, it's a little different because now houses are so expensive for us to even buy in the first place.
That's right.
That like, how can we even think about like buying a house? Now we're thinking about like, it's all over the place.
I agree. All righty, I think we could spend a whole class on that topic, but good luck with that with your brother. All right, everybody, welcome to Project 2. We're shifting gears, as I'm sure you've had a bit of a glimpse into the assignment brief here. There's some typos here, and again, as typical with the fact that this is the first semester, things are always in a constant state of draft. So there's some typos here, which I'll point out when I go over the brief. I'd like to go over the lecture first before we go over the brief. I think this will help understand why we're doing what we're doing now, and help to give you the confidence to approach this in a really dynamic way. So when I began to think about the notion of protest and the role of slogans in general, think about Black Lives Matter, Make America Great Again, thinking both ends of the political spectrum. I was also struck, and of course, placards are part of those activities, and the slogans that you're developing are certainly envisioned. I know Robin has already started to talk about that in regards to being on a particular event coming up this coming month. I was very struck by what was going on in the UK with the inflatable Trump, and how it was so different to what was being created, and so expressive and so iconic. And I was struck by that. I was struck by its sculptural nature. I was struck by its light, its sort of animated quality that completely changed the scale and the dynamics of the march. And of course, it reminded me of the Macy's Day Parade floats and that go down the streets of Manhattan. And so this has been on the back of my mind about another mode of protesting, or the way in which one can be creative besides placards, besides painting words on a road, objects like this being quite potent. Obviously, scouring imagery for climate marches and being influenced by that. We constantly are looking on images online and so forth. In this particular climate march in 2019, September 2019 in Montreal. I forgive me. This is Montreal's Mount Royal, right? I was struck by this photo. I was struck by the obelisk and the sculpture of the angel on top of that, in contrast to the placards. And I'm in the way that I draw references visually. I immediately thought of the inflatable Trump floating around, but in a kind of different way, just making these sort of visual associations. And so I wanted to, part of what I wanted to do with this workshop is to provide you with a way to think about how we can start to spatialize and think about your slogan in form, in 3D form, but also thinking about that activated with the body. So I see placards as being an extension of the body. You see here in the photograph of the hand holding up the piece of wood with the placard. Of course, the young ladies here with the placards. So in a way, we're already seeing the sort of spatialization of slogans in relationship to the body, even though they're just on two-dimensional sheet. So I'm morphing all these together to find a new language and an interesting, innovative way for us to explore spatializing the slogan in regards to the body. And so I focused in on the obelisk. And if you've already taken out your prints that are in the rolls, you will have seen that you would have probably guessed that this makes this form. And obelisks obviously go back to thousands of years ago, all the way back to, so let me get my notes here, 3000 BC, fourth dynasties of the Egyptian Empire. Many of the obelisks that were created at that time were brought to Europe by various generals and so forth, and were demolished at some point, maybe in the 12th century, and then brought back and rebuilt. But all these are stolen artifacts from Egypt at the time. And when, of course, we can see obelisks being referenced throughout time in graphic form here, going back to the 17th century. and an obelisk being revered in Rome, to then more recently in the late 19th century, an obelisk being erected in New York City, here at the Cleopatra's Needle. And obviously these still exist within our cities. One of the most well-known one is in the Palace de la Concorde in Paris. And of course, we can see obelisks being decorative objects. If you've been to New York at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Met, you will see obelisks being depicted there. Obelisks are sort of signposts within the sort of urban, were signposts within the urban fabric of Egyptian cities. There were also ways in which to memorialize and particular rulers, emperors at the time. They also decreed particular laws, and the hieroglyphs on that articulated that. I think I've also seen that they functioned as a kind of sundial in some instances, and many of these hieroglyphs have been translated, and their messages being translated. And in many ways, I kind of see our work in slogans as an extension of, slogan, hieroglyphs going back, thousands of years ago. So I'm struck by the form, and I'm struck by the historical relevance of what we're doing, and trying in this workshop, trying to have found a form that really, in some ways, speaks to history, but to what we're talking about in terms of the role of the slogan within the city and so forth. So you will have, sorry for the image being slightly cut off there, you will have received a pattern. The pattern's been changed a little bit from what you've seen here, but building this little form here and getting a bit of inspiration from that. These are the two large prints that you would have received along with a letter-sized print within your roll. And these, we'll talk about how these are going to be translated onto your cardboard sheets. Just so you know, I paid for these, obviously, and I'll see about getting reimbursed possibly from the university. Just so you know, each tube cost about $33. So just so you're aware of what it costs. I didn't feel it was fair to make you pay for that, considering this is an untested workshop, and so you're guinea pigs, and I would much rather you use your $33. There'll be other expenses coming down the pike with this course that I'd rather you use your money on than on these printed forms. So I paid for these, just so you know, and it's important that you know how much it costs. So if you wanted stuff printed in the future, that you know that. So so taking the placard, taking the inflatable Trump, and thinking about how form can then be morphed in the body and extend to the body. There's certainly in the 20th century, there's these wonderful moments in which a form has sort of merged with the body. And this wonderful photograph of Philip Johnson, probably in the 1950s or 60s, with a building, I think this is one of his buildings, or maybe a building out of New York, morphed onto his head. I think really speaks to the sort of spirit of what we're going to be playing with on one level in this project. What that image is referring to is a reference to a 1931 Beaux Arts ball, where these famous architects, and forgive me, I don't know these architects or these buildings. There's the Empire State Building there, and the architect representing that. But these architects dressed up like their buildings and paraded around at an event. And so, in the history of architecture, this is seen as sort of one of the cheeky kind of moments in which the architect really becomes his building in many respects. But nevertheless, this provides a really wonderful idea about how to merge some things that I want us to explore around our slogan. We can also see how the body's been morphed and changed by students developing costumes at the Bauhaus in Germany in the 1930s. These really wonderful forms that really have this sort of innocent spirit to them, and really just playfulness within that, changing the body, morphing the body into different forms, and you know, some of them representing planets and so forth, some of them being more literal than others, but nevertheless, you know, the body, trying to animate the body, trying to extend the body, amplify the body in a way that only, you know, large forms added to the body can do. So this is part of the spirit of what we're looking at in this project. Also, I think it's important to introduce you to a really important sculptor from out of Germany, who's still alive, really came to fame in the 70s, a woman named Rebecca Horn. And she was best known for her mechanical. She created these wonderful mechanical sculptures that were kinetic, worked on little motors, electrified, made reference to the body. But there were no body. There were just maybe shoes tapping based upon this wonderful simplified mechanism that caused them to move. I would encourage you to go and do more research on the people I'm introducing you today. But her early work in the 70s really was about amplifying the body and creating action with the body as well. And so we get here this male figure where there's these sort of horns growing out of the shoulders, and the sort of mythic element to the body in a landscape. I think really helps us imagine what the students at the Bauhaus didn't do, but take it out into the world and sort of really open up the imagination of what the body can represent and be in the environment. And of course, then the face as a writing instrument. Again, this is a sculptor thinking about the notion of expression, and so this cerebral idea, you know, removing the hand and the head being the source of inspiration, also becoming the source of drawing, and so we get this sort of cheeky response to the artist and the artist's mark, literally from head to face to paper. We can also see her work dealing with more possible feminist issues of the time. Again, I think the mythological aspects of references to unicorns and so forth there, to issues of femininity, these sort of forms that bring the breast to the mouth, and then I think the image on the right, which is more of a reference to the act of being a sculptor, the extension of the fingers, and what that means in terms of forming, morphing paper, picking things up. And so here we get really wonderful sort of clear expressions of that, especially through photography, uncluttered by things unnecessarily around that, also placed in relationship to a landscape or an environment. One of her best known works is this sort of radial wing, here shown in different stages of unfolding, but again really demonstrating a wonderful amplification of the body, and opening up metaphors around certainly I think of Leonardo da Vinci's that wonderful drawing of the man and the center of man being the center of the universe, but also proportionally here. And I think she in a way is challenging that with the woman at the center of the radius, and how that unfolds and morphs depending on its configuration. So really important sculptor for all of you to know if you don't know. Another work, much more recent, that I think talks about a certain bridging of two bodies and dealing with sort of negative space between two bodies, and sort of trying to give form to the sort of ambient nature of relationships, the ambient nature of communication, and trying to give form to that. And I think that this sculpture, I've been a fan of this person's work for a long time, really captures metaphorically so many things about the nature of communication and of two individuals interacting with one another. We can also see that extended to the individual. Here, Lucy Ortar is also commenting on the issue of homelessness. There was a lot of critical analysis of her work at the time when this was out as a kind of superficial response to homelessness. But she had sort of positioned this within sort of more early social justice work in terms of a commentary on the state of being homeless and trying to create a way of bringing the identity of the homeless into an icon, but also providing shelter at the same time. There were both pros and cons critiques of this work. If we go, and I'm going to be making these leaps, I'm making these broad connections, but I think this not only gives you some ideas, but allows you to sort of see how my mind is jumping and making associations. And so we go from this sort of implication of this sort of inflatable to literally inflatable data. And this comes out of, if you're not familiar with the data flow books coming out of Gestalt publication. This is the first data flow book, but here we get Stefan Segmeister. If you don't know this graphic designer out of New York, he's probably one of the most influential graphic designers coming out of the United States since the 90s. Here he's playing with data in regards to three-dimensional form, and so I immediately was thinking of your slogans in regards to these three-dimensional forms. Here at the bottom, you see more sort of sculptural forms, rockets, silhouettes of bodies, and pie charts and so forth. So, and here we have a bar graph on the right. Kind of interesting to see how that changes into sort of an inflatable a collapsible package that then is inflated to represent data in a really compelling sort of way. So, yeah, thinking about this, and then of course thinking more about the role of inflatables in regards to commercial applications in this wonderful inflatable billboard by Klein Dytham Architecture that I saw while I was in Tokyo one year. Really was quite something, quite spectacular in terms of it changing the urban landscape and really bringing attention to what was going on behind that, which was a construction site basically, but allowing an opportunity for a department store to really bring a unique recognition to itself within this temporary installation. Then I also then started to think about, from Stegmeister, thinking about images on form. Obviously one can't help but think about packaging and the unique aspects of image, of text on form, and especially packaging. Japanese packaging in particular tends to be quite experimental and sculptural, and this one was the quickest example I could find online, created by some Swedish students, inspired by Japanese design. Here, a three-dimensional form for cookies packaging that then morphs into a three-dimensional form, but also displays that. So, looking at both its functionality, but also looking at its image to text and form. Then taking it even further to think about the relationship of text onto automobiles. If you guys are doing things on your phones, if you could hold off on texting while we're doing this, that would be great. Anyhow, NASCAR has always done some really interesting things with full body decals on that. Yes, it's crash capitalism and marketing, but it starts to change the form of the car, introducing color, introducing text onto that in a really sort of dynamic way. I was struck by this one in terms of creating a kind of sense of perspective within the side of the automobile, really sort of changing the spatial dimension of the surface of the car into this perspective image. Was by far one of the most daring aspects of image, of text on form. And I'm also struck by the fact that these cars are running on a track at 150 miles plus, over 100 miles an hour, and how that looks how that must look being a spectator watching these things streak by. You never quite understand that on the television, but I wonder what that's like when you're actually right there in the grandstands of NASCAR, watching these cars move around. Still thinking about SAGMI, still thinking about image on form. These early renderings by MVRDV. Those of you who, all of you have taken Insectum, you would have remembered Pig City, the pig farm designed by MVRDV, same architecture firm. These are some early renderings of them looking at sort of artificial terrains and text. In this case, data visualizations in regards to that. Very simple kind of expressions, but nevertheless, I think showing some interesting potential within text and form. And of course, they're envisioning this in terms of mountains and buildings, quite large in terms of their scale. If you go back and look at Dataflow 2, we can also see data being represented in three-dimensional forms. This is probably more on the scale of packaging and so forth, but another example of data in relationship to three-dimensional form. When we think about the use of planar material to create three-dimensional form, we call these polygon mesh constructions. This is typical if you've done 3D modeling and 3D rendering. And so these types of very simplified forms, if any of you are done video games that deal with really low, certainly video games from the 1990s or early 2000s that have really low polygon forms. This sort of low resolution polygon forms was what made up a lot of early online video games, because they were simplified renderings of form. But nevertheless, these can be used to create really wonderful sort of sculptural forms. I think this individual, which comes out of a group called Midnight Polygon, I think these are 3D modeled forms, but Matthew, I'm thinking of your wonderful color palette today in regards to these little animal forms. I haven't thought about color in terms of this project, but color can certainly be part of it if you want to think about that. Here we're looking at both probably a digital form on the left, which is supposed to be a brain of some kind, to sort of mock-ups in three-dimensional form. This sort of polygonal form is what you can bring to what it is that you're going to be creating in this stage of this project. And so here we're looking at what we're calling orthographic sort of front views of the body, partial views of a female body, but you can kind of see how the body can be simplified into planar forms that simplify the forms, but you can imagine planar material like cardboard used to construct a body form like this. So you'll see in the course outline, the assignment brief, which I'll go into, the fact that I'm going to want you to create some preparatory work, which is going to be creating silhouette forms of your body with dimensions. And this comes out of examples. This comes out of early work from the 1930s by Ernst Neumfert, who worked with Gropius. Comes out of the Bauhaus, who really was interested in architectural standards, but also the body in relationship to form. This was also part of the thinking that was going on at the time, especially with there on the right is Le Corbusier's standard, the modular, which is a system of measuring man in regards to built space that Le Corbusier, the great Swiss architect, developed. On the left there is Neufert's dimensional relationships of the person proportionally. So this has been a fascination with architecture, and I think this extended into human factors after post-war. Dreyfus, a very famous American product designer, who came up with a book called Standard Something, which deals with the measurement of the body in regards to interfaces. This is the early work of that. But here you see him measuring out the body in various different gestures and so forth. The right side there is showing you those forms in regards to dimensions. And these are, especially the ones of the figure kneeling there in the bottom half there, are the kind of dimensions that I want you to add to your drawings of your body, both in front view and in side view, in the two minimal views. But so you're going to be, in a way, copying, practicing what Neufert had been doing back in the 1930s. The book is still available today. I think it's in 5th or 6th edition. This is always interesting. It's always interesting to look at Neufert's work in regards to Edward Muybridge. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this photographer from the late 19th century. This is early. This is the origins of film, basically. And Muybridge had come up with this series of cameras that would then capture the movement of the individual, and then he created these wonderful compositions, which he put together in portfolios called Human and Animal Locomotion. He studied both male and female form and child form. He also studied various animals. And so here you see a wonderful sort of exploration of the male body in regards to lifting weights. And then you also see a wonderful exploration of what were the challenges, the ice bucket challenges that we saw recently in the last decade or so that flooded the social media. I forget what anybody remember what was the cause? Anyway,
ALS.
LAS. LAS, is that right?
ALS.
ELS, is that right? Am I hearing you right?
ALS.
ALS, excuse me, ALS, pardon me, ALS. Yes. So we have an early ALS challenge before it was a challenge. This is taken from the 19th century, but again, Muybridge looking at the phenomena of water on the body. Anyhow, really, really wonderful photographic series that really help people start to see motion and the potential of the human body at particular points in space and time, and it really changed people's understanding of space and time. Wonderful series here of boxing. I'm struck by the negative spaces in between the two male forms as they're boxing here. A really wonderful, I see letter forms in here, wonderful sort of iconic symbols in regards to the body form created within these two bodies in motion with one another. So these are going to be areas for where you can be inspired by. So that's where we are today with the workshop. Before we get into the workshop, let's go into the course outline, and then we'll go over the workshop today and the aims and objectives of this. So today, so I've changed the percentage of this project. This is only worth 10% of your entire grade for the semester. If we're to relate this to more pragmatic aspects of us practicing design, we're using this as a strategy of exploration within what we would do in our private practices. This is not necessarily work we would even show to a client. This is work that would help us start to get our inspiration and our motivation going. So this should be understood as an exercise in exploring early inspirational type of exercises, workshop exercises for yourself, like sketching. So this is three-dimensional sketching, I guess you could say. So the schedule for this, and I've changed the schedule based upon beyond what was initially proposed in our course schedule. And of course, as I said, this course is always in revision. Today is the introduction to that. Next week, you're going to need to present some sketched ideas of your three-dimensional form with your slogan on it. This is going to reside in your sketchbook, and I expect them to be crappy little sketches, and so please don't be self-conscious, but things that you're exploring, and you're mocking up some early ideas about the three-dimensional form in letter-sized paper. The fact that I've given you a letter-sized letter-sized version of the template that we'll be cutting out of cardboard today is giving you, you're practicing this today. Then we have between March 4th and March 18th, we have a reading week, so we won't have class then. You will need to have identified the final form, and you will have need to build a one-to-one mock-up, and that probably is going to take maybe two iterations. More than likely, I'll be buying you more I'll be helping you get more cardboard during the break, the mid break, and I'll get that delivered to you. Then on March 18th, you'll be presenting that, I will on the 18th introduce you to projects 3 and 4. I think we'll just go ahead and let you know exactly what you're taking from what you've learned, and we'll get busy on projects 3 and 4 because they all are related to one another. And then on the 4th, on March 25th, we'll all go over to the Port campus, and we're going to laser cut out the final version of your form. We're going to assemble that probably with hot glue guns, and then we'll do a crit and a sort of submission there at the Port campus as well. So it'd be wonderful. We'll get out of our homes and we'll be able to go work there. So this is nice with having 3 of us, with only having 4 of us. This is something that we can absolutely do over at the Port campus. So introduction. In this project, we'll be exploring how to spatially activate the slogan in regards to amplifying some aspect of the body, not the entire, with a cardboard modification. The project will provide you insight into how the slogan can express itself off the screen and the printed page. In the end, you will create a one-to-one scale abstract cardboard form to be worn over or on some aspect of the body with the slogan located somewhere on its surface. One-to-one means that today we're building a one-to-one cardboard model of the obelisk. The final design as an unfolded form will be created with the vector drawings in Illustrator. These will then be used with a laser cutter to cut and scribe lines of the unfolded form and slogan. Put simply, design a wearable body part that amplifies or exaggerates some aspect of the body, then fix your slogan onto that form. And again, the slogan will be cut out with the laser cutter onto the cardboard. So preparatory work, and this goes back to the last section of slides that I showed you. You're going to take a photo of your full body in an undistorted orthographic view. Means that no parallaxing of the lines. You want to try to get your camera absolutely perpendicular to your body, and 2 views minimum, front and side. You can do more views if you'd like. If you want to do a top view, have one of your friends stand above you and photograph you from the top would be great. Take a photograph of you from the back. 2 other views absolutely would be great as well, but 2 minimum. Then in Illustrator, you're going to create a silhouette from those photographs. You're not going to submit the photographs; you'll submit the silhouettes, and you're going to include dimensions on next to the body form. You can work in metric or imperial. I can't remember what actually I'll let you know what the meaning, either metric or inches and feet. I'll let you know because I think we probably need to work within the standards of dimensions based upon the laser cutter, because the laser cutter works in that way. Works in either one of those dimensions. So I think I'll check with Fuad about what unit of measurement that they use, and then I'll let you know what to use on your dimension drawings. But all this is done in Illustrator, and you can go back to Neufert. And again, I'll just zoom back here to Neufert. I point out what dimension drawings are. So here you see with my cursor here, you see these lines that with numbers. This is in metric, but this is showing you particular dimensions. These are exactly the kind of dimension lines that you'll need to create in regards to your body. Let's go back here. So so from form finding strategies. So this is certainly not the extent of your approach to this. And this, I'm really going to leave this open to you in terms of how you approach this. But I want to give you a little bit of direction from which you can then actually take, or you can completely disregard. This project really is about how you're going to interpret this, and I'm looking, I'm looking for either you do, you take my direct recommendations, or you do it, the way that you think it should be done, and we're going to leave it really quite open for interpretation. But here are my thoughts. There are many areas from which one can draw inspiration for this project: polygon animation, illustration, packaging, automobile body decals, etc. We've seen that, of course, in the slide presentation. Attempt to work in an indirect and abstract manner. Approach this as a purely sculptural exercise, and hence why I showed you Rebecca Horn. In particular, I want you to not think about this as something pragmatic and how this relates to a deliverable to a client. This is really about just your let's use the word artistic, your artistic expression, let's say, within this. To locate a provocative form, try to capture the essence of the slogan in an activity or as a metaphor. So first idea, maybe create or invent an action by one person or two people. If a tool or object is used in that action, think about how that could morph that particular part of the body. Maybe use the negative space within that activity, a frozen gesturized moment, think Muybridge, to locate form with your slogan. So if I go back to these stills from Muybridge, I'm thinking, like, what if you were to morph the barbell with the arm, and you created a kind of cover over the arm that then exaggerated the barbell, and so it's almost like I think of Marvel movies where there are these villains whose bodies turn into different tools and things like that. It has obviously some associations go to Marvel comic characters in some ways in terms of thinking about what that. But again, try to think about what the barbells would mean in relationship to your slogan in terms of your campaign. If we think about, if we go back then to this idea of using negative space within the activity between two people or between an individual, again, sorry, I hope I'm not making you ill by zooming through here. If we go back to Muybridge, we can think about these wonderful negative forms between the body and the bucket here. We can see a negative form here. Think about the negative space within these body forms as points of inspiration for this. I think the boxing one really is a quite wonderful example of, if you were to take Illustrator, bring this in Illustrator and then just draw the negative form out, it'd be really interesting to see what sort of came out of that. Again, I imagine that we're going to have a series of photographs that we take of you posing with your form, and so we'll do similar photographs once on the day that you critique this. I'll either hire a photographer or photograph it myself, but we're going to do similar photographs to Rebecca Horn here, like this photograph here on the right, with your forms, and this could be really wonderful portfolio work to show the inspiration of what you've done. Similar, just very sort of neutral photographs like this, neutral backgrounds. We'll shoot these at the Port campus, but I really want to get great photographs of you posing with the forms, and so understand that that's part of the outcome of the final outcome of this project. Even Philip Johnson's photograph here is really wonderful, and so this is the kind of imagery that I want to see come out of this project. Second bullet point: locate metaphor from the slogan. What part of the body represents the slogan? What activity represents the slogan? And sorry, there's a typo on this third one. What action of the body in that activity represents the slogan? Sorry, not the body. That's a typo there, and I'll reissue the the assignment brief on Brightspace. So the third point being, again, what action of the body is that activity represents the slogan. So, you know, I'm thinking about Melanie's in regards to Melanie's, you know, I think of sort of actions like, you know, because this is agriculture, I'm almost thinking like immediately I think of the metaphors of milking cows, boom, 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 of that of being a metaphor of a sort of cross between the actions of drilling, fracking drilling, and milking cows, or other sort of actions on the farm that would represent, be metaphors to. I even think of, you know, sort of a if someone was the farmer was airing up the tires in his tractor using a bicycle pump and pumping. I think of that sort of action of hand pumping as being, you know, a representation of these drills drilling into the ground for fracking. Again, you know how my mind works. My mind can really work abstractly and make really odd connections, but these are the kind of connections that all of you can, you know, Matthew and Robin can think of in regards to your slogan, in regards to particular events or activities as well. So lastly, how does the text wrap around the form and the body? I want you to think about that in regards to the automobile decals, in regards to packaging, and the inflatable objects that we saw. What are there interesting moments of concealment until the angle of viewing changes? So think about the fact that as you walk around the form, you'll only see one part of the word. You know, so for example, Robin, I'm thinking about action, how that act might be on one side of the form, and then the rest of the slogan wrapping being on another plane. And so you first might see act, and then you would see the rest of that as you moved around the form. So there's a lot of, you know, same with I'm thinking about Melanie's don't sully. Maybe don't sully's on one portion of the form, and then you get Macaulay on the other side of the form. So there's some real wonderful ways of thinking about spatializing and how one is introduced to the slogan as one moves around the form as well. Really, really some great, and even because it's laser cut, they're going to create holes in the form. So maybe there's going to be a juxtaposition looking through one hole of the word and seeing the cutout of the other part of the slogan on the other side of the form, and they're becoming interesting compositional juxtapositions within the sort of negative spaces of the three-dimensional form. These are all the sort of things that this project provides you in terms of exploration. Just some basic terminology glossary here: cut lines, scribe lines, fold, direction. These are all the sort of language that you really need to be thinking about in today's activity, and then as you begin developing your form. These are critical things. We can do multiple different sides of scribing. So, you know, we're going to be working with the bed of the laser cutter. So within one sheet of cardboard, we can also flip that sheet of cardboard. Once it cuts one time, we can flip it over and scribe on the backside, which gives you a different angle of folding. So if you've got complex forms that fold in different directions, if you want to keep things connected in a folding way, that provides you that. We're going to be assembling, all the final forms will be assembled with hot glue, not with tape. And so the hot glue is really going to be able to create a wonderful seamless kind of form. A lot of this work that we'll be doing comes out of my work with my bricks that you would have seen in my research. I don't know if you see my screen here, but these are the insect-inspired bricks I've created. These are all typically assembled with hot glue, and so this really provides a really clean form. Today we're working in masking tape in terms of it's going to be quite crude today in terms of just quickly assembling what it is that we're creating in that. So that's that. Before I kick into going over the workshop with you, there's still time to disenroll from the course if you're feeling though that what the hell have I gotten myself into. So there's still, I think there's still a chance to maybe get a partial refund. I'm not sure. What do we think, honestly? I guess my question is maybe that's a loaded question.
It wasn't exactly what I was picturing the direction of this project, but also I didn't really have, like, leading up to today, I'm like, I have no idea what we would do next. So I'm not disappointed. I love working with like three-dimensional forms and experimenting with that too. Yeah, I think I just haven't like tried to dive into this yet, so I don't know if I have anything to say about it yet.
Before anybody else answers, I guess I understand that the basic things that we're getting out of this exercise is going to find their way into the final. We're going to be working much more pragmatically, much more within the sort of conservative, I would say conservative, I don't know, the more pragmatic ways in which we work as designers. One of the things that, and I'll just a little bit before I let Melanie, you and Robin speak, as a professor, as a teacher, there's a whole level of teaching that I don't share with students, that I have sort of sitting in my background as an educator. And one of the things that has dawned on me, and certainly during the PhD, was that so much of what I teach with students is always about trying to clearly illustrate that the work that we're doing clearly relates to something that will fit within the commercial world of practicing. And yes, this course is about that too. But within that incredible pragmatic rationalization of Insectum and other projects that courses I've run, that I've not allowed for an opportunity for purely experimental work that can fail, that can be that doesn't have to make sense, that doesn't have to clearly represent the translation of your research into this. And yes, the slogans you've created fits in within those conventions. But I feel as though that I feel like I'm keeping you from missing out on purely tapping into something that's much more intuitive and artistic, and doesn't need to make sense or be rationalized by research, but just be purely about an expression given some parameters. And so built into this project, which the basic things that you're going to be getting out of this are going to absolutely inform the stage 3 and project 3 and project 4. But this really needs to free you up, not to feel as though you're going to look stupid, or that whatever, but that you've got the space to be really, really experimental with this in a way that may not make any sense whatsoever to the larger project. So your thoughts on that? Any thoughts, if you have?
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
Melanie, I know I was conscious of hearing you talk about being uncomfortable and you pushing yourself within the slogan, the word mark of the slogan. Is this taking you over the edge, this portion?
No, I've done like projects like this before in school. Definitely not my passion. I don't like the conceptual art so much, but I'm going to do my best. We'll see what happens.
Good. Great. Again, I don't want this to be seen as too conceptual. I mean, I want this to be seen as playful and fun. I think everything has been very conceptual up to this point, and I think all of you are operating in a really amazing. I think all the work is incredibly sophisticated on this level. I'm arguing for this not being so conceptual, but this being more intuitive and just sort of playing than anything else. So the work that we're doing after this is very conceptual in terms of how that's going to be applied to very specific sort of commercial outcomes. So anyhow, Well, good. Thank you for being open, Melanie, to this. I appreciate it. With that said, we've got an in-class workshop that will take us through till 1 o'clock. I will share my screen with you, and I'll just take you through this. I think you basically get the gist of it already. What is oh shit? Let me transfer my files. I'm working between two computers, and I keep thinking I'm working in my laptop here. One moment, please. Give me just a minute. I'll transfer these over. So to help expedite, I've already worked through this. There are both. Let's see here. Sculpture. Good. Process photos. Good. Okay. Okay, so I'll share my screen with you now. Yep, preview. So these are just a series of photos that I've taken. I've worked at this at night. You'll see that the drawing, the drawings have changed. This is an early iteration of this based upon the first original template. And I've changed that to simplify it to try to work within cardboard. So basically, you want to orient your sheets onto on a piece of cardboard. You want to use 2 sheets to cut because you don't want to. You'll be cutting on the floor probably or on another surface, and you don't want to scratch your floors or scratch your tabletop. So take one of the sheet, do double sheets. You've got 4. So put a second sheet underneath and let your blade cut through that. You're going to then mask that sheet down and then begin to cut the forms. You need to cut the dotted lines are the scribe lines, and the black lines are the cutout lines. Again, the big sheets that you have are going to look different to this because this is an early iteration again. But when you cut that out, this is what one of the sheets looks like. You can see here that I figured that out when I finally cut that out, that I needed to cut other aspects of that, and I'm taping that down. Just to see, I got this form taped. I don't need that because what I've done is in this part here, when I tape this down, I have taken my straight edge and my X-Acto blade and I've cut the form out here along with the scribe marks. So here I'm just sort of seeing the form here and anyhow, this doesn't quite relate. Here's the other sheet. Slightly different. This was an earlier iteration of that. Again, you'll see that I've got this taped down with the masking tape. The masking tape is great because the masking tape is easily removed without tearing the sheet. Not that that's critical, but if you need to move the tape around, that helps. It becomes more helpful with the cardboard when you put the cardboard together. Again, 2 layers of the cardboard sheet. My straight edge and my X-Acto knife getting ready to do the work here. I used a pillow to get right on top of the work. Your knees will dent the cardboard. Not that that's a big deal, but you're just sort of practicing good working strategies. So plus I'm an old man, so it's hard on my knees, and so the pillow helped with that. So I used this to kneel over and to cut on. And then this is the form. I've already cut and scribed the marks. So I did the scribe marks first, which was, this is a scribe mark, this is a scribe mark, and that's a scribe mark. And then everything else was a cutout line. Doing the scribe marks first obviously allows for the whole form not to be cut out while you're working on it. It's just a good pattern. I've had to go over with my blade a couple of times around the outside. If on the fold marks you cut all the way through, it's not the big deal. But I just wanted you to sort of see how the fold marks work. Here we have the form there. Excuse me. And then of course I'm taping the two edges there to bring that forward. And then you actually see the form right there. My version, there's problems with my version, and I don't know. I haven't had time to figure out why things the triangles aren't connecting. But my three-dimensional form was a failure, and I'll show you this in just a minute. Which is fine because fine at this stage because we're just experimenting. So yours, I have not rebuilt it with your form, so you might find out that the triangles at the top will not connect together properly. But for the purpose of the exercise, this is still going to be valuable. Then what I did was I took a bowl, a metal bowl there, and I put tape on either edge. And this gave me the ability to draw an arc on either side, and then cut out an arc. I then took out the bottom sheet here, the bottom plane here, and I'll stop sharing screen here. And so the idea then is, and again, mine is falling apart already. The tape, masking tape doesn't last very well. So then the idea being that that I might then cut out my face. Oops, and I have to tuck down, and then I've got a obelisk head now. So in the spirit of Philip Johnson, I've created a body extension here at the beginning of that. So mine is incredibly rough. It required probably another iteration or so. But anyway, it's just a way for you to play around with the form. You can sort of see I cut arcs on both sides. I didn't do anything for my face yet, but this allows you to start to see a kind of extension of the face, an extension of the body in regards to a particular form. So that's what we're doing today. You're getting comfortable with working three-dimensionally. You're getting comfortable with working in cardboard and understanding the basic mechanics. And again, this is very similar to the kind of work that I've been doing within the installations at NASCAD and in Japan with the bricks. These sort of scribe and fold marks are typical to the kind of three-dimensional work that I'm doing. You can see here my cone is turned out absolute crap. So you may find difficulty with yours as well at the top there. But I think as a workshop, number one, it's nice to take a break from being on the screen. You can, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working on this. So I hope you do as well. So you have everything you need. You should have 3 drawings in your tube, 2 big sheets, which are your patterns. I would say, why don't you start off first by building your little small obelisk with the A4 sheet. Why don't you take a minute and cut that out, understanding that the dotted lines are the fold marks. You don't need a scribe there. You're just going to fold that for this case, and cut out the form and build yourself a little miniature obelisk, and then kick into the large scale one. Got it? Cool. I will stay online here and be available. And if you want to chat about any of this as we go, if you get a moment of inspiration and you want to ask questions about, well, could I do this, Christopher? Could I do that? This would be this is a good time to let your imagination run wild while you're doing this. Keep your sketchbook handy, so if you get an idea, you can quickly write that down or sketch it out, so you can capture that that energy. So you can use this time as a way to do this. You should be done with this by 1 o'clock. This is a 1 o'clock. It may take you a little bit over 1, but anyhow, get started.
Cool.
Everyone, just a reminder, we're about 15 minutes before the end of class. So if you've got any questions, please make sure you bring them up now. I hope that the putting together of the cardboard template's going well. Again, the triangles may not meet up. If so, you may need to take some scrap and try to create your own triangles to complete the obelisk.
Yeah, I'm just currently finishing up cutting the other half of it. I don't think I have any questions thus far, but I'll probably email you in the future if I do.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, again, just remember that for next week, you need to get the preparatory work done and then some basic sketches on this and possibly some paper mock-ups of things that you're thinking about. We'll use this time, again, if you're struggling, we'll obviously use this time to help work out ideas. They're going to be work in progress discussions and provide insight into the work that you're doing and I'll be able to give you some advice on how to move forward and potential and what it is that you've created in case you're not seeing it already. So
cool, sounds good.
If you while you've been working, I've been working in Illustrator with the Muybridge images of the two men boxing, just drawing out some. I'll share my screen again. Tracing out some of the negative spaces in the photograph. This is just to demonstrate to you the sort of graphic work that you can to sort of start to find some interesting forms within two figures. This may mean you can sort of see the sort of irregularity of the two forms that I found. I'm simplifying them now by starting to delete some of the vectors and trying to find something more stylized or simplified within this now. This is the newer version. Sorry, this is the newer version. That's the original version. And then this is you can sort of see the difference between the two. Actually, I'll pull that one to the side so you can see. Sorry, let me lock that one. And I'll just pull that to the side. Yeah, then you can sort of see how I'm starting to simplify the two. I think one thing that you could get from this kind of seeing this kind of exercise is if you were inspired by the negative spaces between the body, then what you might want to do is try to create a particular type of form with your body that would be indicative of a metaphor or something, let's say, or it can be completely abstract. But you can actually, rather than just coming upon a negative space between two bodies or a single body, you could actually start being very deliberate about how you gesture the body to make interesting negative spaces within that. So it can work in two directions as a potential source for finding a three-dimensional form.
So for next week, I know you said it probably 3 times now, but I just want to be super sure. Can you just go over, oh, I think you're muted maybe.
Melanie, I can go over it as many times as you need me to, so not a problem.
Cool.
Cool, yeah.
So just,
I'm sorry, what was your question, Melanie?
maybe I'll let you. Sorry, what's due next week?
What's due next week? No problem at all. So again, I'm looking at the assignment brief under the heading of prep. I'll bring up the slide here just so we can see this. One moment. That would help. So in this, in the assignment outline, assignment brief, basically I'm saying that for next week you want to present your sketches, what you've sort of been playing with. And again, this can be very, very rough. And I would say, you know, work in your sketchbook and then photograph those sketches and bring them in. If you want to start to do some things in Illustrator with them, as you're seeing me, when you go back and watch the video of what I've been doing with the Muybridge images, that may be a strategy, again, wherever your imagination takes you. And if you found some inspiration, start mocking up some simple forms, like I gave you with the A4, the letter size sheet and the template. Start, you know, just using some very simple paper strategies. Start mocking up some three-dimensional forms. While you're doing that, maybe prior to that, you want to do the orthographic portraits of yourself, right? So the preparatory work, which you see here in the middle, you want photos of yourself. You want to be able then to get silhouettes and be able then to get dimensions of those. So you need to have the preparatory work done, and then what is being shown for week 2 of this project done for next week. And this will and all that you got to do is just say, hey, Christopher, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? And then I'm going to show you how to develop that.
I'm wondering, can we work in like 3D modeling software instead?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking about that, Matthew. I didn't bring up any 3D modeling because I wasn't sure where you were at, and I didn't want to develop a project around, you know, using software that somebody did not know how to use. So I was concerned about the project being accessible to everybody. So yes, if you're if you've got 3D modeling software experience, oh my God, by far, this is ideally what the project should be working in. But if not, it's not critical.
Great.
Cool. Melanie, is that clear?
Yeah. So drawings, is that like, so I'm going to take a picture of myself doing something that I think either gesturally extends behind this, and then I'm drawing those figures as silhouettes?
Well, you were breaking in and out there in your question. So let me reiterate again. The preparatory work is just completely separate from form finding. The preparatory work is basically you having, you have this on your Miro board, a set of dimensions in relationship to your body form that you will then be able to draw, you'll be able to use once you start to finalize a form, you'll be able to understand what the general 1-to-1 scale is going to be in making that. And so basically the preparatory work is you're creating a ruler for yourself. So you have a sense of how big you need to be working, first of all, okay? That has nothing to do with form finding. Then the form finding strategies, which is then this other part of the assignment brief, is completely separate work for which you're finding inspiration in strategies like I've shown you through Muybridge, or through inspiration through Rebecca Horn, through all the sort of imagery that I've shown you today. You're trying to find inspiration for trying to find a form that, again, and I'm just reading the introduction here, put simply, you're going to design a wearable body part that amplifies or exaggerates some aspect of the body when then fix your slogan onto that. So if for example, I go back to the dumbbells here. This was the next thing I was going to draw as an example to show you is I would take this, and let's say with this gesture here, I would then in Illustrator trace around the barbells, and maybe I've decided that I want to come down all the way to the elbow, and I'll trace down to the elbow and create a form, and then maybe I might exaggerate. Let's say the bar for you, the dumbbell is a metaphor for your project. So you're going to amplify. You're going to change. You've already changed the form of it by tracing around it anyway, but you may add some other changes to it, and then you're going to want to see that as a three-dimensional volumetric form that you could slip your whole arm into, and you could wear. And then you want to think about where the slogan is going to be on that form. So basically, you're like the obelisk, which I stuck my head into. You would create a hollow form for which the body part would go into. Does that make sense?
Maybe. So I have some thoughts. Maybe that will help clear it up too.
Sure.
But so for next week, basically, we just take pictures of ourselves, make like a quick little thing, and that's basically like a template for us to work off of and like build off of it.
Absolutely, you could use it as a template as well in terms of that. But but the orthographic view I want is just like Neufert. First of all, I want just a very standard silhouette. Sorry, let's go back here. Basically, arms down to the side. Front view, side view, minimum, and from head to toe, no gesture, just by itself. Take a photograph, sketch over that. Sorry, create a silhouette of that. Create your dimensions in regards to that, like you see here with Neufert. That's done. If you want to take more photographs of your body as well, then that could start to help to, obviously you may take more photographs of your body, which will then begin to provide you with inspiration for form making. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I was thinking, in just first thoughts that came to mind of like, I was thinking of like, for mine, it kind of goes towards like the heart of the person. So could I make like a heart, almost like not like a sash, but like it's like it kind of goes around your chest, and there's like a heart, or maybe like tubes that come off of it and they wrap around you or something, and then the slogan's on the heart.
Absolutely. That could be one idea that you have. Absolutely. Think about how that's going to be volumetric. It's just not going to be, in some way that the tubes themselves may be volumetric, or the whole form. If you see it wrapping around the whole part of your torso, then think about how you're going to get it on.
Yeah.
Maybe the whole strap is the volumetric form that goes over the body that is then worn, and maybe you might even create some sort of other cardboard form that helps hold that onto your shoulders or something of that kind.
Cool. And does it have to all be made out of cardboard?
Well, the final thing you make is going to be laser cut and then assembled with a glue gun. So
yeah, I was picturing like maybe like if I was to follow this, the heart would be made out of cardboard, and then I would just get like tubes or straps to help strap it around.
Interesting. That's a good question. No, I'd like the whole thing to be cardboard. I think again if we go back, yeah, then it's too sculptural. Then it's too like mixed media sculpture. I want it. I think for the purpose of this, not to draw. I don't want to draw attention to material. I want to just draw attention like Segmeisters, or more like this. I want to just draw attention to pure form.
Okay. And if, again, back to my idea, so can the cardboard be bent in a way that like would it necessarily be pleasing, or should it be almost cut where like you can take it, put it on and off of someone, and it keeps its form?
I think let's see what you come up with next week, and I'll help you with that. I'm not sure until I see it. So, okay. But I mean, this is why I don't want it to be multimedia. I want it to have a similar expression like this, just but in cardboard brown, right? And then of course your logo is cut out of that as well. So it really is just a form. It's a spatial exercise for you to start to see form, see the logo in relationship to form, in relationship to the body. And that's the extent of what I want to highlight. If you bring in other material, and I think even if you color the cardboard, then it starts to it starts to get into other things that I don't think is necessary for this exercise.
Yeah. So, and for making the form, it has to be based off of the human body.
It's got to be something that is going to be on the body.
Okay, so it doesn't, like, the form could be like in the form of jewelry, or like it doesn't have to be like based off of doesn't have to be like a hand.
No, God, no,
like a mug or something.
I mean, it's like the fact that I turned my head into an obelisk.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't have to be like a giant hand that you put on your hand.
No. I mean, this goes back to the fact that these guys' heads are buildings.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Or these people's bodies are constellations.
Yeah. Perfect.
Any other questions, you all? Great questions, Melanie and Matthew. All right, everybody, that's the end of class. Again, if you get into this and you just feel like you're completely lost and just need to have a bit of a chat, please email me. Don't sit and spin. Just send me an email and say, can I have a quick chat? And then I can answer any questions and kind of go over things. So both videos are going to be up on YouTube, so you can refer back to the slides. If you'd like me to send you the PDF with the slides, I can also do that if you think that's necessary. Otherwise, the video's there with me chatting about everything. This whole last part has been recorded as well, so you'll see that. Anyhow, have fun. Please have fun with this. This is meant to be a lot of fun and there are obviously parameters to the project, but in terms of what the form is and how the slogan fits on the form is completely open to how you're interpreting that. So thank you all very much and have a great week, everybody.
Well,
thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please send me the PDFs, by the way, of the two slogans that you've chosen. Thank you. The two wordmark slogans you've chosen. Thank you. And I'll get assessment out to you next week as well.